muscles. You know this?
Welcome back to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Time to talk Guardians baseball. They've been extremely disappointing the last 4 games. They were swept by the Reds at home, and they split against the Tigers. And guys, we always say, will they play meaningful games in September? I've changed my mind over the last 4 games because these are the teams you have to win series against the Tigers and the Reds. You can't split. They had Saturday's game was rained out.
I was going to that game.
Oh, that would have been a great game to go to.
Bieber
A Saturday
was
game against, by the way, Bieber. Oh, my goodness. That's another topic for another day. Anyhow, the Guardians have lost 3 of their last 4 to 2 of the worst teams in all of baseball.
Yeah.
And now you're feeling their season slip away. You're trying to reach for it and grab it, but it doesn't feel like it's going to work. Jose Ramirez, we talked about him on Friday. Thursday, he took one off the knee, and it looked like he was in big trouble. I mean, we thought this could be something that lingers into the season. No. He ends up coming back. He plays Friday. Not only does he play Friday, guys, he's 2 for 4. Broke his long homerless streak, so now he has 9 home runs. He had 3 RBI. That was in the big 6-1 win over the Tigers on Friday. Rained out Saturday. Yesterday played, was 0 for 2 in the 4-2 loss. But we can't emphasize enough that this guy is the do-it-all athlete that you want in Cleveland. He plays for under his worth. He re-signs a contract long-term that will likely keep him here through the bulk of his career, probably maybe into the end of his career, for less money than he could have got on the open market. No one does that. And he plays in his first year like it's his last year of his deal. We talked earlier about how Clowney comes to play in the last year of his deal. Jose's playing every single day like he's earning his paycheck that day.
And he hasn't missed much time in his career. He hasn't had many injuries.
I went back and looked. So not counting the COVID-shortened year in 2020.
Right.
4 of the last 5 seasons, taking 20 out of the mix, he's played at least 150 games. That's nobody plays 162 anymore.
That's amazing.
So he plays every day. He plays at a high level every day, and it got us to thinking, where does he fall in the conversation of toughest athletes in the history of Cleveland?
He might be on the list. It's hard to put baseball guys there because it's not a contact sport, right? And so when you look at some of these other guys, they may make your list. You talk about basketball. Basketball is it's just tough endurance rise, especially you playing all those games, you playing back-to-backs, and then if you're good, you go basketball season starts when?
October.
October. But you got camp kind of in September, and then if you're good, you're playing all the way to June.
But in baseball, you're playing 162. You're playing every day.
And there is contact in baseball. It's not like there's never contact.
I'll give a baseball player a role. The older they are, when you get up in the age, right, and you see guys still playing at a significantly high level at an older age, that's tough.
Cal Ripken has one of the greatest. We talk about Iron Man. That record, there's records in baseball never be defeated. Just the sheer amount.
No one will ever come close to that.
Every single day? That's crazy.
No one will ever come close to that. You have him in your top 10?
He would be. He wasn't. I gave a top 5. We gave a list. Don't do mine first. Save me for the end. But he would be. Yes, he would be in my top 10 in terms of current athletes right now in Cleveland. There's no doubt. I think he showed toughness consistently. He like we talked about, 150-plus games, 4 to 5 years. He's only had 1 injury that I can recall in his entire career that's kept him out for any kind of significant amount of time. It is tough. When you listen, baseball isn't the same physical game that football is, of course, or even basketball. But when you have to be ready to play every single day, year after year after year, you're not, at least in basketball, you're playing 3 games a week?
3, 4.
And nowadays guys are sitting out once every 3 games. In baseball, you're playing, and obviously not everybody's playing every day, but a guy like Ramirez is playing 6 games a week. That's a lot. Sometimes 7.
You know what scares me about that is the fact, and it's kind of off the beaten path, but if he's durable, he's cheap, he works hard, he doesn't give you any problems. That's one of the most tradable contracts in the game. At what
no trade clause.
No trade.
At what point do you feel he's going to be here duration of the contract?
Well, he has to. He's got a no trade clause.
He would have to agree to it. Maybe they just signed him to the extension. They're not going to trade him.
And the Guardians would never, because he's a bargain, they would never trade him.
It doesn't make any sense.
So.
Maybe towards the end of his career, if they're bad and he wanted to go somewhere else to try to win the World Series, maybe, but I don't think he's getting traded anytime soon.
No, I don't either. Brad, let's do it this way.
Okay.
Because I think we all agree he's tough. Who's the toughest Cleveland athlete you've ever watched?
So I had on my list, there were a number of ones that came to mind. I'm going back in history.
Here we go.
Here.
Okay.
So, so I had Lonnie Shelton, if you
Brad's
remember.
got himself on the list.
No. So if you remember the Cavaliers,
Lonnie
Lonnie
Shelton.
Lonnie Shelton was one of tough. He was just tough.
Yeah, he was tough.
You hear the old school players talk, but they didn't even want to see him. That's how tough he was, right? And then I was talking about older baseball players.
Yeah.
Gaylord Perry was tough,
He was
right?
scuffing up the ball.
No, that's all right, but he was
I mean,
tough.
you got to be tough if your name is Gaylord,
And
too.
then here,
kidding.
Satchel Paige,
Yeah, well.
playing at the age he was playing at in
Yeah.
Cleveland.
Yeah, he
Oh,
played
come on now.
well into his upper age. He was
Wasn't he like
50, I
70
think.
or
Listen, he was killing them, right? And then the ultimate is Jim Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go back and watch those films with Jim Brown. I'm like,
He was famous for taking 30 seconds to walk back to the huddle.
Yeah.
And, he was just like, looked like that was his last play he was ever going to play.
Yep.
And then the ball would be snapped, and they'd give it to him, and like he was shot out of a cannon every time.
Satchel Paige would pitch, and then he'd pitch again the next day.
Yeah.
I mean, there was
Yeah,
no pitch
those
count.
guys were old.
Now, I'm going back
Yeah.
in time,
That's
but
old
these
school,
are
yeah.
this is old school. This is
Hey,
old school.
you're an old
list.
timer. You're allowed to do that.
Any pitcher that
I'm an
pitched
old
before
timer, too.
1969 need to be on the list. If you pitched anywhere between before 69, you was throwing back-to-back shutouts at 12, 15 innings.
If the game went 15, you went 15.
Yeah,
pretty
complete
much.
games
Yeah.
were common.
Yeah.
And guys never came out for pitch counts.
Oh,
Relief
no.
pitchers in those days were guys who were like
Not good
old,
enough.
right? They weren't good anymore.
Yeah, hanging on.
Yeah,
Now they're
yeah.
specialists.
Yeah.
G. Bush, who's your toughest Cleveland athlete?
Well, man, I went with a couple of different dudes here. Tristan Thompson for me was a weird one, but Tristan Thompson played a lot of games. He had an Iron Man list going on there a little bit. Joe
did.
Thomas, 10 years in a row. That's crazy. The fact that as an offensive lineman, I always speak and say, you touch somebody every single play as an offensive lineman. You got to be physical. A receiver can run around and come back. The lineman is crazy. These other two, I'm going to put on here for different reasons. Ernest Byner was mentally tough. To be able to come back from that fumble and to have a respectable career.
Good point.
And
Won a Super Bowl.
And
Yep.
still be out here in the community. I mean, you got to think he was destroyed after that. That was people couldn't even come
Eviscerated.
back from that. He came back, had a nice career, like you said, won a Super Bowl, got a Super Bowl ring. And Albert Bell, I would say, as far as tough,
He's scary.
He was the most literally intimidating dude.
You guys remember when he trucked Fernando Vina? He
straight
was in the
for him,
baseline. He clocked. It looked like a fullback hitting a 150-pound cornerback.
Yeah.
And then he was like that with everybody. It wasn't just. He
was a bad man.
He was
You talk about born with a chip on your shoulder.
Good gracious.
Yeah.
That's a
He had
bad man.
a whole bag of them on his shoulder. You want to go last?
Yeah,
on
I wanna
this.
go last.
So I thought I still do. I think I've got the mic drop guy.
Okay.
Joe Charbonneau, guys. Joe Charbonneau was a career minor leaguer, and the stories around Joe Charbonneau were legendary. He once cut himself and stitched it up with a needle. He gave himself stitches.
Yeah.
He would open beer bottles with his eye socket. Now imagine doing that.
Come on.
How well do you know Joe?
I've played in a couple of celebrity tournaments with
Yeah.
Joe, baseball and softball as well. I don't think we played in softball, but
Yeah.
nope, softball, and I think maybe in a baseball one as well. So I got to know him a little bit. His career obviously was derailed by, oddly enough, I think it was a back injury. He was never the same. He never came back from it. He was the American League Rookie of the Year. He was a phenom in this
Amazing.
city. If you're over 50 years old, you remember the legend of Joe Charbonneau. Guy was tough as nails.
He one time came down to a bar remote when I was doing the show.
Yeah.
And then he and I just sat and hung after. And I got to know him a little bit. I wouldn't say
Tough
close
SOB.
friends, but couldn't have been nicer.
Yeah.
And then we played in a charity softball game, the same game that Travis Hafner played in at the Lake Erie Crushers Stadium.
Right.
And he's so awesome. He's such a down-to-earth guy.
We're not going to skim over the fact you say he opened
Over
a
with
beer
the
bottle with his eye.
That's right.
That didn't get enough love.
You're right. Hey, we had to. Like OG said, hey, bring that back.
Yeah, we got to bring that back. He gave himself stitches.
That's crazy.
With like fishing line and a needle.
Nuts.
Who the hell does that?
Crazy.
That's nuts.
Listen, he get the reward from me. Hey, if I see him in the streets, he get the belt. That I'm trying to figure out
He gets the toughness
logistically,
belt.
how do you put something in this little area right here? Logistically, how does that?
Yeah, it's nuts.
That's
So
nuts.
Bull's telling me
You
he's
guys
the greatest of
missed
all time.
The toughest guy, one of the toughest people in the history of America. The last guy on the list. I leave off Larry Doby.
Larry Doby.
I thought about him. I did think
was
about him.
the first black player in the American League and the second black player in the majors.
I thought about Larry.
He made his major league debut in July 5th, the same year that Jackie Robinson made his debut. So it was what? Jackie Robinson, April 15th, so less than 3 months later.
Yeah.
It's not like things got better for black guys in 3 months.
Yeah.
And he didn't, I don't mean to diminish what Jackie did in any way, but he hasn't been celebrated around the country
and
like
the city,
Jackie
he
Robinson
was breaking barriers in all the cities he was going to because there wasn't interleague play back then. So while Jackie was, breaking the barriers with the Dodgers, Larry was doing the same thing in all the American League cities.
Yeah, Larry Doby was amazing. Had to go through, like you said, everything that he made his major league debut in Chicago against the White Sox. It was the second game of a doubleheader, if I remember correctly, and I believe it was a record crowd. I guess it was Comiskey Park at the time. I can't think of it.
I don't know if Comiskey was in yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was Comiskey at the time, but I believe it was the most black people that had ever attended a major league game.
I can believe
because
that.
a lot of people from the south side of Chicago, they came straight from the churches. They wanted to see him play. And unlike Jackie, who had time in the minor leagues, Jackie played in the minor leagues and had to deal with a lot of awfulness there too, obviously. But at least he had time to, I guess, connect, for lack of a better word, with some of his teammates. Larry Doby did not play in the minor leagues. He went straight to the major leagues and he didn't play much that first year. I think Lou Boudreau was the manager, and he was like a pinch hitter. And a lot of players around the league were like, "What? Why is this guy here?" Because he was not very good when he first came to Cleveland, because he didn't play much. I think he was like 5 for 35 or something. He didn't look good, and then obviously the rest of his career, he was phenomenal. But what he had to endure.
Yeah. You just went to a different place. You went to the emotional, the mental toughness that it takes to not strike back, to hear all the things that he heard.
But not
strike
the mental
back.
toughness, but the physical toughness too. When black players first started coming into the big leagues, Jackie Robinson, Larry Doby amongst them, as other guys started coming in too, they were getting hit by pitches purposely. You look at the numbers of hit by pitches for black players, the few black players that, as they came into the leagues after that, the numbers were like off the charts.
Yeah,
so he had to deal with the physical pain. He knew, he and Jackie had talked. And they knew that they couldn't fight back. They couldn't respond. They had to maintain a calmness. That's toughness.
Yeah, you're right. He's tough. We're going to move along quickly. I just want to tell a story.
And by the way, real quick, one of his sons, is a roadie for Billy Joel's band.
It doesn't get any cooler than
that.
And
I met him once. He was really cool.
I saw Billy when he was here at Progressive a couple years ago. What a show.
Yeah, amazing.
Quickly on Larry Doby.
Yeah.
Someone was telling me a story of Larry's career. Obviously, the players couldn't stay in the team hotel.
Right.
They had to stay in another hotel. So they're segregated even from their own team.
Right.
They also couldn't take the team transportation.
Right.
So they weren't boarding the team bus.
Right.
And someone told me a story of Larry Doby having to walk to the game, but he had to walk. Now picture this, guys. This is one of the, I don't know that I've ever felt emotionally gutted more than this for a sports story. He was walking to a game because he couldn't get a cab driver to take him in whatever city they were in. He was in spikes, his full uniform, ball cap and ball glove. Imagine seeing that.
It's nuts.
Walking to the game.
Nuts.
Because he was so separated from his team.
That happened in
Gutting.
That happened in our lifetime, by the way. I want people. This didn't happen.
No, it was just not your lifetime.
Not yours. Not even mine.
But my parents, your grandparents, and your parents' lifetime.
Yeah.
A couple generations.
Yeah.
Like that. This isn't 1924 or something.
No.
This isn't World War I. This is like, hey, this is not that long ago.
A lot of people still alive.
You got to remember. You always remember where you come from.
By the way, he is recognized in Cleveland. And one other place, Montclair, New Jersey, where my wife grew up.
That's where he's from, right?
Lived.
Yeah.
That's where he lived. Yeah. And he became good friends with Yogi Berra, actually, later in his life. And they were really close.
Tremendous man. Hell of a player, too.
One other thing I wanted to mention for my list, the other guys, Stipe Miocic, who we haven't talked about at all.
Yeah, very tough.
Who's a Cleveland guy. To be a UFC fighter, you got to be pretty badass.
Those are some of the toughest athletes out there.